After touring around Europe with his band in the late 70s, Barry's illustrious career started in the early 80s with international chart toppers Brotherhood of Man. Then he became a UK top nightclub DJ whilst writing and producing for many famous hit artists. In the 90s, he turned to country music for inspiration and wrote worldwide hit 5, 6, 7, 8, leading to his formation of pop band Steps, who have now had numerous single and album chart success. After more hits with such diverse acts as Sonia, John Otway and the Cheeky Girls, plus a song in the double Oscar-winning film Little Miss Sunshine, Barry moved to the Sunshine Paradise of Thailand, where he's been presenting on radio and TV, as well as continuing to perform music live. His passion has always been songwriting, and this he successfully continues to do.
How did your life change?
Well, when I got to Kevin's house, or it was now my house, he handed me the keys. Off he went to the show house of on his new estate. His house wasn't quite finished yet, but there was a girl that I'd met before called Kwan, and I called her up, and she came over and helped me christen the house, so to speak. And then I went out and bought a motorbike because I needed some transport to get around town. And then I went down to Patio People, and they were really pleased to see me and offered me a mid-morning radio show almost immediately. And so all of a sudden, I'm in a new country, I have a new job, and things were starting to look up already. And then I went to a party, I was invited to a party, and I met a lovely girl called Opal, who'd done a lot of modelling, and she had some friends, and first of all she helped me go and buy stuff for the house that I needed, just things like cutlery and plates and things like that. Showed me the places to go and where to get them. A very big help. She's become an amazing friend and still is today, but she had another friend who was helping her out with her twin children at the time, and I said, well, I need a cleaner. And she said, well, yeah, Tong, she'll help you out, she'll become your maid. So all of a sudden there I had a maid. Actually, she became more than a maid. A few frolics in the swimming pool, and it was welcome to Thailand again. And then I met up with a guy from Scotland called Martin Carlisle. He'd been there a while. He was a videographer, and we got on like a house on fire, and we started making a few features together, which was just for fun. But they were good enough to be shown on the TV at Patio People. And Niels Koloff, the managing director or the CEO of Patio People, he was dining out on the fact that he now had a member of Brotherhood of Man on his staff at the station. One day I got an email from a guy called Ben Finden, and he said, are you the same Barry Upton? He'd obviously heard me on the radio and seen me on the TV. Are you the same Barry Upton who knew Tony Hiller and was in Brotherhood of Man? And I looked at it, I went, are you the same Ben Finden who wrote I'm in the Mood for Dancing? And he also discovered Billy Ocean and wrote those first couple of Billy Ocean hits, Love Really Hurts Without You. So we got on the phone chatting, and he told me how he'd come to Thailand many years before, and he was now living in Pattaya and playing golf mostly. So I said, well, where do you live? And when he told me, I couldn't believe it. His house was almost immediately behind mine. I said, put the kettle on, I'll be round in 2 minutes. So that was a great find. A music business friend who lived just round the corner. And those first few months there, it was a bit of a whirlwind of things happening. And I suddenly realised that my life now, there's never a dull moment. And that's what I've always kept as a motto about Pattaya. It's a fabulous place if you just indulge yourself in the whole scene and make friends, and you'll be invited to parties and property launches, things like that. Especially with Patio People Media Group, I was being invited here, there and everywhere. And then Pattaya People Media Group had a special anniversary party, and I asked if I could perform, and they said yes, we'd love you to perform. And so that was my first performance actually in Thailand, and from that many people saw me, and that got me on the road to getting gigs. And also there was a place called the Blues Factory down at Walking Street in Pattaya, and there was this amazing guitar player called Snowman. He was a blues player, and he'd got the B.B. King Blues Award. Came from Chicago, and the band were just absolutely superb, and they were like world class. I couldn't believe it. So I'd go down and watch them a lot, and then I got to know Snowman, and he found out what I did, and that invited me up to do a couple of songs on a Sunday. They had like a bit of an invitational blues jam, and how difficult is it to play blues, really? It's just 12 bar. That's what was in my brain anyway. Although Snowman, he was very, very good on the guitar. And so then what I started doing was writing a blues song. I mean, I thought, how difficult can it be? So I would write a song on a Sunday afternoon, go down to the Blues Factory in the evening, and just say to the band, it's in the key of E, do this kind of tempo, and off I'd sing a brand new song. So that was good for the songwriting brain.
Forever, freeze this moment in time. The two of us together with complete peace of mind. Picture this, take a photo of the people of you and me and my sunshine guitar.
And then one night I decided to try and fool everybody, and I realised, when I was messing around at home, I suddenly realised I could play Save Your Kisses for Me in a blues style. So I did that, very, very slow blues, and I started singing, well, it hurts to go away, it's impossible to stay. And it was only towards the very end of it that the owner of the Blues Factory, he shouted out, I know what you're singing. It was really, really was. It was just so much fun. I laugh a minute.
Only 23. Save your kisses, save your kisses, save your kisses for me.
So now you were settled in, but you still had commitments in the UK.
Yes, well, my original plan was to spend 6 months in Thailand, 6 months in the UK, still do my the important gigs, the ones in the summer, the ones at Christmas. So I went back to do the Christmas military gigs, and one of the gigs that we always did just before Christmas was the Beefeaters Ball at a hotel just opposite the Tower of London. And this particular year, the gig was slightly separate to all the Christmas gigs. So I thought, well, I'll still fly back for it, but then I'll fly back to Thailand and then fly back again for the Christmas gigs. So I did the Beefeaters Ball. My band played fantastically, and the special guest of honour that night was Robin Gibb, and it was really worthwhile going back and doing that gig. And then, as I say, I flew back to Thailand, flew back to the UK, and did all the Christmas military gigs. But I also augmented that with some solo gigs at Debbie's new restaurant. Yes, I got back with Debbie again just for a short period, and once again. And she's got a lovely restaurant, fantastic food. Her son Ian was now an amazing chef. And so yeah, I was very happy to be playing gigs back in the UK. Didn't like the cold though, and I flew back to Thailand to spend Christmas on the beach, something I'd always wanted to do. And I always was very jealous of seeing people in Australia having Christmas on the beach all my life. So that was it. That was my first Christmas on the beach. And then I flew back and did the New Year's Eve gig. It was like catching a bus backwards and forwards to the UK. New Year's Eve gigs, always lucrative, so I had to go back and do that. And especially for the band as well.
And then it was back to Pattaya and back to your new exciting life.
Yes, now it was 2010. And I was doing my show on 96 FM, Pattaya. I did my first wedding gig. My next door neighbour was getting married, and he employed me to do the wedding show down in Jomtien. I remember we were at the roof of this hotel, looking out over the sea in Jomtien, just outside Pattaya, and it really was its paradise. I felt so at home. And then I had my first house guests, Tracy and George, tennis friends of mine back from the UK, and they came and stayed for a few days, and it was just so nice to be able to show off my new life.
And then you wrote a Pattaya song.
Ah yes, Pattaya Wonderland. I wrote it because I'd heard this song that was being played around Pattaya, Pattaya, and it was all about the bars and the bar scene, and I just thought, no, there's more to Pattaya than that. I already realised this, so I thought, I know, I'll write a song about a couple falling in love in Pattaya. Well, I didn't have my studio at that time, so I had to use a Thai guy studio, and but I produced this track, and it became really popular, played on the radio, played on TV, used in various films. It's still popular today. In fact, I did a couple of videos for Pattaya Wonderland, and the first one actually included the mayor of Pattaya. He really liked the song and agreed to appear in the video. The second one I'll talk about a little bit later. But at the time, Martin was my videographer, and he was a great cameraman and a pretty good editor as well.
It makes her feel so wonderful. Sabay, sabay, oh yeah, sabay. Sunshine in a land of smiles. Pattaya, Pattaya, let's go Pattaya. Daytime, nighttime, anytime's a good time. Loving to love in Pattaya.
Pattaya people, he wanted us to go down and do some travel vlogs on Koh Chang, which is an island very close to Cambodia, and so we went down there, and I was doing the presentation, Martin was doing the filming, and we spent a week and we did about 11 different features. And then I had this moment where I used to watch the holiday program back in the UK, and a lady called Judith Chalmers was the presenter. I used to think, well, she's got the best job in the world, just presenting and going on holiday. So there we were in Ko Chang, and I was just preparing myself for a piece to camera, and I suddenly realised, hey, I'm Judith Chalmers. I am that presenter on holiday being paid to enjoy myself and just be filmed. So that was an amazing moment. I suddenly kind of like ticked that box. And then myself and Martin, we made some MTV style music shows at Patio People offices. There was a green screen room. So we made use of it, and we put together these kind of like MTV style retro, or looking back at the 60s and the 70s and various different themes. We called it Behind the Music, and I was giving some background stories to some of the songs. We were making great programs. It was really fun to do that. I remember we did a Beatles special, a 70s disco one, a country one. All of these were really popular programs. And then it was time for me to come back to the UK for a couple of months for the summer and to do the summer shows. But just before I did, there's a club called Expats Club in Pattaya, meets once a week. And there was a girl selling insurance there called Wana. And I took to her quite a bit, but she had a boyfriend. But she kind of intimated to me that boyfriend may not last. Anyway.
So you returned to the UK only for summer Wild at Heart gigs?
Well, that was the original plan. I was staying with Tracy and George, who had stayed at my place a few months earlier. And I was only going to be staying there for a month, maybe two. But that did actually get extended to 3 months as more and more gigs came in. Plus, my friends from Oregon, the Dedricks, they were visiting the UK and they wanted to visit Paris. And I said, well, I'll come with you to Paris and I'll be your tour guide. And during that time, that period when they were here, we visited Windsor. And I remember Terry, who was my very first girlfriend, proper girlfriend, all those years ago in the early 70s. She came down to meet me. She got in contact with me and I said, well, I'm going to be in Windsor. And she said, I'll come down and meet you. So we did. We had tea and a very, very good meet up and reminisced about old times. And then I went back to, in Southampton, I packaged up my studio because I decided, now I really want my studio, same as my friend Kevin wanted his boat in Thailand. I decided I want my studio, so I got it all packaged up, ready to ship.
Returning to Pattaya, a few major things happened.
Yes, 96 FM promoted me to the flagship breakfast show. It was called, I renamed it Morning Glory. There's a vegetable over here in Thailand called Morning Glory. And I wrote a song, I'd already written a song called Come On, Get Up, Get Out, Get Moving. And that's what I had to do every morning, so I used that as the theme tune. The thing is, I've never really been an early morning person, being rock and roll and doing gigs and stuff, so late to bed, late to rise. Now it was the other way around, early to bed, early to rise, because I had to be ready to start my show at 8 o'clock in the morning. But there was a big audience, it was a big show, what can I say? It was fun to do.
And then I believe you had yet another paradise moment.
Yes, I was asked to play at a wedding, and it was going to be on Koh Samet, a lovely island just south of Pattaya. And the couple were already married, but they wanted to renew their vows and do it with monks and have a fabulous party on the beach on the island of Koh Samet. So I went down there with them, and I was playing on the stage, and there was this moment where I'm playing in front of a kind of almost like a fenced off area for the wedding party, but there were plenty of tourists in the restaurant to my left, and there were plenty of tourists dancing in the sea even. So there was people dancing around everywhere, and you know, it was lovely and warm. It was a beautiful evening, and I'm playing my music, and I just thought, how could this get any better? I mean, this really is ultra paradise. And then on top of that, my studio arrived. It had taken a month or two, but all of a sudden, there it was being delivered to my house, and everything was completely intact. I've got my studio here in my pool villa in Pattaya, Thailand. Life was so good. I was now in a relationship with Wana, the insurance girl, and that was going great. My radio show was getting fabulous reviews, and I just settled into a wonderfully exhilarating lifestyle.
And then you came tumbling back down to earth again.
Yes, that was the Christmas 2010. I had to go back to the UK to do my Christmas shows. The shows were great. I really enjoyed playing with the band, but I really didn't like the weather. When I arrived, there was snow. It was cold. I hadn't got my winter clothes on yet. They were in my storage unit. And then I had to get my van unfrozen by the RAC. And at one point I got stopped by the police, and I was really panicking because I hadn't renewed my tax disc yet. But I got away with it. I think the snow was covering it a little bit. And then I got to my storage unit. Would you believe it? It was closed because it was so icy and cold and snowy. They'd not opened. And so I went berserk. I got on the phone to their head office and said, you've got to get somebody down here. I've got to get my equipment into the van so that I can do my shows. Plus, I'm still wearing the clothes that I travelled in. I haven't got my winter clothes on yet. So I'm freezing. Actually, I was sitting in the van quite warm, but it doesn't matter. So eventually they did. Somebody came up and opened the storage unit. But oh, what a day that was. And then it got worse because I went to see my friend Martin Perry, who was recovering from a cancer operation. And I went to his road, which was a cul-de-sac, parked the van at the end because the road was very icy. I slipped on the ice and fell onto my arse. I looked up at the stars and then had a big eureka moment, and I vowed to myself I would never, ever return to the UK in winter ever again. And I was laying there hurting and just wishing I was back in the land of sunshine and the warmth of Thailand. The Christmas gigs were good, and I had a meet-up with Terry. We had a very nice meet-up. Relived old times. And then I jumped back to Pattaya for Christmas, for the Christmas Day and the Christmas celebrations, because in Pattaya it was fantastic. Everything was open, the sunshine on the beach, and then popped back to the UK for New Year's Eve. And I remember thinking, that's it. I'm not coming back here in the winter ever again. No more snow, no more cold weather for me, ever.
So now it's 2011, and I think Wana took you on a tour of Thailand.
Yeah, we've spoken about it a lot. The fact that I hadn't seen much of Thailand, so she said, "Well, let's go on a tour." And then the first place she took me to was Chiang Mai. I remember seeing some giant pandas at the zoo there, the place was full of coffee shops. I remember at the time, temples and coffee shops. But then we returned back down to Bangkok, and we went to Koh Sang Road, the very famous hippie road. That was good. I enjoyed that. And then we went to Hua Hin. We caught the train down to Hua Hin, which is a very lovely area as well. Great for a couple of days. And then we went back to Bangkok, met up with some girlfriends of hers. And there's me and 3 girls going down to Krabi and a tour of the islands there. It was fabulous. It really was. It was, what can I say? It was a wonderful tour. Thank you, Wana.
And then you really became a top local Pattaya celebrity.
Well, yes. Just after that tour, myself and Wana, we entered this thing called the bed race, which was various beds that had been dressed up and they were wheeled down. They're really just like trolleys, really, but wheeled down Beach Road. And we decided to go as John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And we won the trophy for the best, the most popular. That was it, the most popular bed. And then my Morning Glory radio show, the radio manager he'd bought the unit next door and turned it into like a coffee shop. And we decided to have the morning show live on the street outside the offices and outside the coffee shop. And then people could sit there, buy a coffee and watch the morning show being done, even take part in it. And this was just such a total success. It really was. And I remember we had various features on it, like Ringo Bingo, which was a stupid kind of bingo game that we played on it. But it was very entertaining. And we ended up turning the whole thing into a TV show. So they brought the cameras down, and a cameraman would set up a couple of cameras and then film the main body of the probably the middle hour, I think it was, of the breakfast show, and then go and edit it and turn it into a TV show to be shown the same day on Patio People television. And then I became a TV producer in my own right. A feature had been started on a monthly basis, showcasing a nightclub down in Walking Street called Club Insomnia, and the program was called Girl About Town. Well, a few features had already been made, but the guy that was making them was leaving Patio People, so I was asked, well, will you produce it? And I thought, well, I've got to film it, I've got to edit it, so I'm going to need to learn a bit more about editing. Filming, I knew a fair bit about that anyway. So I recorded a theme tune for it. Martin, my friend Martin, he showed me the basics of editing video. I bought an iMac and I ended up producing 60 monthly episodes over the next 5 years. It was incredible, really. It was an amazing success. And I learned a lot about editing very quickly. So I started making more features, and I said to the boss, I said, what would you like me to make shows about? He says, whatever you fancy. Well, that was red rag to a bull, wasn't it? So I had a free range, and I came up with some fairly good ideas.
Summer 2011, were they your final gigs with Wild at Heart?
Yes, I took Wanna with me, and it was only going to be for a few weeks, so I cleared out my storage unit, I downsized, so I had a very much smaller storage unit. I still keep holding on to stuff. It was still new, really. I sold my van. I came back to Pattaya and was doing TV feature production, but I was getting more adventurous now. And in particular, there was a thing at the Pullman G Hotel called the Sexy Splash Party. And it really was sexy. It was a little bit too sexy for TV. I didn't realise that until I'd actually put the feature out onto TV, and some of the staff said, "Oh, you can't show that." So I had to blur a few things out, otherwise we were likely to be taken off air. Maybe I've gone just a little bit over the top there. And then Niels Koloff, our CEO at Patio People Media Group, he took a group of us to the Philippines, with the idea being that maybe we would start a TV station there. And everywhere I went, we went into nightclubs and go-go bars and stuff. Everywhere I went, 5, 6, 7, 8 was playing. I didn't realise it was so popular in the Philippines. And then when I came back to Pattaya for the newspaper, they wanted to do an advertising campaign for the Patio People newspaper. And myself and Wanna were chose to be reading the paper, like a Thai and a foreign person reading the newspaper. Next thing, all over Pattaya, advertising hoardings everywhere, and there was myself and Wanna. You just couldn't get away from us.
And it wasn't just advertising hoardings.
Yes, the video that we'd made for Patio Wonderland, that was never off the TV, but all of a sudden there was this big, large screen, giant screen TV at the bottom of one of the main roads. So when you were waiting at the traffic lights, you could have adverts bombarding you. But at the time it was all brand new. They hadn't got any advertising. So all they did was play Patio Wonderland, the video, the one with myself and the mayor dancing on the beach. And it was good because it showed lots of aspects of Pattaya, and it kind of filled in a few months until they'd got some advertising coming in. But yes, we're never off of that. It was really funny seeing myself so large on the screen every time I drove down that road. And then at Christmas that year, I did a radio pantomime, and I got a lot of the characters that I'd met around Pattaya to join in. And what I did was I wrote a script, and changed it to suit Pattaya. But I never showed anybody the script until the very day that we performed it, so they just had to read the lines. Well, it was just so funny. It really was one of the funniest things I've ever done. And everybody got into the spirit of it, and we filmed it for Pattaya People Television. I wish I had a copy of that. I don't, unfortunately.
You coined the phrase for your description of Pattaya, never a dull moment. Was this true?
Oh, absolutely. 2012 started with a couple of Danish women who, they were TV stars in Denmark, and they were making a documentary about Pattaya, and they wanted to come on my show and interview me, being a Pattaya celebrity, about Pattaya. But the funny thing was that as they were interviewing me, I was kind of interviewing them. We had two film crews filming, one for the Danish TV, one for Pattaya People TV. And then I met this guy called Derek, who was in a Beatles tribute act in the UK. He's from Liverpool. He used to play the Paul McCartney parts, and I'd always wanted to play John Lennon. So we put a Beatlemania act together, and first of all, it was just a duo, but we were planning to maybe do the full four-piece at some point.
And then I think you helped your friend John Otway break Southeast Asia.
Yes, John Otway called me and said, I'm coming over to do a gig in Singapore for a fan's 50th birthday. And he's paying for the flights and, you know, all the accommodation, and paying me to do the gig. Can I come and visit you for a couple of days, because we're coming via Bangkok? So I thought, fabulous. I said, stay for a few days. I'll show you around. So he stayed at my house. I introduced him to the Expats Club, where I'd already booked him in to do his show about being rock and roll's greatest failure. And of course that went down really well. And then I got him a gig at the Blues Factory. And I said to the owner, you know, how about we do a gig, and I'll accompany John. I've done the duo gig with him many times. And so he advertised it, packed the place out. There's so many Otway fans around the world. And you suddenly realise it when so many people came to that venue in the middle of Pattaya. So he kind of was feeling like, oh, I'm breaking Asia now, a new territory. And then there was this guy that had booked him for his 50th in Singapore, decided to come over and see that gig at the Blues Factory, saw me playing with him, and decided, oh, you've got to come to Singapore, you've got to do the gig with him in Singapore on Friday. And I said, yeah, but I've got a gig on Thursday here, and I'm doing a Beatles gig on Saturday at Silver Lake. He said, don't worry, I will fix everything up. And so sure enough, he did. He booked the flights, and I did 3 gigs in 3 days. The first one was in Pattaya. I remember it was a St. Patrick's Day show. And then I didn't go to bed. I just sort of stayed up and went up to the airport, got the early morning flight to Singapore, rested a bit at the hotel, did the show with John Otway in Singapore, and then next morning flew back to Pattaya, or flew back to Thailand, came back to Pattaya, then on to Silver Lake and did the Beatlemania gig. So this was the funny part. I did 3 gigs in Pattaya, Singapore, back to Pattaya. I never played the same song twice. 3 completely different sets of songs. Yeah, it was real proper rock and roll and a highly satisfying 3-day mini tour of Asia.
How about hooking up with a Pattaya legend, Tony?
Yeah, now Tony was this mythical person that I'd been seeing on posters who looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, advertising his gyms and nightclubs. But I'd never met him, and then all of a sudden I was invited to a party at his place, and I never realised he was an amazing musician, and he invited me up to do a couple of songs. And I was looking down at his keyboard playing and thinking, you're a real great player. And he'd got all the right kind of 60s style sounds that I always loved. So afterwards he invited me to play with him at a new nightclub that he was opening. And I just jumped at the chance. I thought, this is fantastic. He got a great drummer, great bass player, and we did actually make a very, very good band together.
And then you went back to the UK to play at a wedding.
Yeah, it was for my sister, whose son was getting married, and she asked me if I would play at the wedding. Well, I still had my equipment locked up in my storage unit. Had to hire a van, but I flew 6,000 miles just to go and play at that wedding. And one of the great reasons for doing it was that all my relatives were going to be there, and this was going to be my last gig in the UK. So it's great that they saw me play. One or two of them have passed on since, and it was just nice to see them one more time as well. Also, my daughter and grandson, they came along, and my grandson, I remember I had a spare guitar, and he put it on and he pretended that he was playing with me, and that was a magic moment as well. So the whole thing was a joyous occasion. However, there was only one problem to the day, which was that at the reception, everybody else got thanked except me. I mean, I'd just flown 6,000 miles. I played for free. His wife's parents didn't even say thank you, not once. And I mean, normally it's up to them to pay for the entertainment, to pay for the wedding, but no, nothing. I got nothing from them at all. Bit of a slap in the face. And also I was a bit disappointed because my nephew was proud of being a scout leader, and in my view he must have missed the appreciation badge. I mean, people say forgive and forget. Sometimes it's just that little bit difficult. However, there was a good side to that trip, and we met up with Nadine and Luke, my daughter and grandson, in Bournemouth, where they lived, and we went to a Steps concert. Steps had reunited, done a TV program about them all getting back together again, and a massive concert tour. So I was able to take them with VIP tickets to the concert in Bournemouth, and I was just like staggered at how many people were dancing to all of the different dances, especially 5, 6, 7, 8. They'd revived all of the hit songs, and there were young kids who weren't even born when 5, 6, 7, 8 came out, right up to pensioners who were loving it, and I just felt so proud.
The Canterbury Tales bookshop became a regular haunt for you.
Yes, this was a unique place, right in the heart of Pattaya, in one of the more dubious streets. So there's lots of fun and frolics going on there. But there was a bookshop which was run by a guy called Dave Collier, fabulous guy, West Ham fan, but can't have everything. And he had this second-hand bookshop which you could bring books and swap them over. You could buy books there as well. But outside there were some tables and chairs, and they used to provide coffee or tea or breakfast even. And it turned out to be the University of Life. That's what we nicknamed it. There were so many characters that would congregate there. And so after my morning show, I would always make a beeline for Canterbury Tales and join in with these fabulous characters. We talked about everything, and it didn't matter what football team you supported, what your politics were or anything like that. Everybody just respected each other, but there was some really funny conversations. And one of my best mates that came out of that was a guy called Scouse Paul. He was from Liverpool but lived in Brighton, but came to Pattaya twice a year, and he would always greet me as I turned up on my motorbike. He would always greet me with a jolly jig on his harmonica, and we making jokes left, right and centre, laughing all the time. That place was a complete celebration of life.
And what about the Biff Gimbal trio?
Well, as I said, I was bumping into characters galore. You never knew who you were going to meet next. And then one day I met up with this guy. I'd heard he was a really good performer, Lee Shamrock. He's from California, but he did an Irish style show. But what a character. Reminded me a little bit of John Otway in his uniqueness. And we struck up a friendship and became a duo. So just to complete the bizarreness of it all, we called ourselves the Biff Gimbal Trio, and we changed our names. He was Lee Liververst, and I was Barry Slobotnik. And we still sometimes do shows even today. We've been friends all that time, and when we play together, we just do it acoustically, and he'll join in with my songs, I'll join in with his songs, and the banter between us is great, and you never know what's going to happen next. And talking of you never know what's going to happen next, I used to have this guy called Police Captain Samurai, and he would come onto my morning show and talk about immigration. He was an immigration chief, so very high up, and he used to come on. He used to love talking about immigration and giving the information about what foreigners should do or should and should not do. And he had a whole row of phones there. One was Interpol, I remember that. Anyway, he became a friend, and he used to call me up sometimes to do favours and play at various different things. And one of the gigs I did was for the new local immigration chief. And so I remember standing on this stage playing to all the immigration staff, and then the mayor walked in and he shouts out, "Hey Barry, do Paddy of Wonderland." Could it get any more bizarre than this? The answer is yes, it could, because one day Police Captain Samurai calls me up and says, "What are you doing now?" I said, "Well, I've just finished the morning show, I've just got home." He says, "Right, I need you to come down and be a commentator for the Royal Thai Police against the Royal Malaysian Police rugby at Satahip Stadium." And I'm going, "Well, I don't know much about rugby." "It doesn't matter," he says, "just speak English and just say thank you and put in a few comments. We've got a Thai commentator, but we need an English commentator. And the one that we booked hadn't turned up." So I said, "Well, how am I going to get down there?" He says, "We'll send a police car for you." So the security at my village, I'm waiting for, and this police car turns up and I get in, and you could see the shocked look on their face. Anyway, I got down there and the match had just started. They handed me a microphone. Thousands of people there, all the top-notch police people from Thailand, and I did what I could. I actually knew a little bit about rugby, but I knew enough to be able to make comments every now and again, and the most important thing was thanking them for coming. And then afterwards, there was a kind of buffet for the VIPs afterwards, and I just said to Captain Samurai, "So how do I get back to Pattaya now?" And he said, "Oh no, you can come with us, that's okay." And every now and again, if royalty was coming through Pattaya, all the roads would be closed off, and this convoy would come rushing past. And I got in the car and we started travelling at speed, and I looked behind and all the lights were flashing, and I suddenly realised I'm in one of those very convoys, and that was just an unreal experience. And then there were some more what I would call unreal experiences. Crazy Kevin, my DJ friend from years before, he was now living in Australia, but he came up and visited me for a week. I had great fun showing him the delights of Pattaya, and it was just great fun, again reminiscing old times. And we were just like two peas in a pod, two brothers. In fact, I always called him little brother because he's slightly younger than me, and he always called me big bro. And then I went with one out to Bali. She had an insurance trip, like a gift, and so we went to Bali for a few days. And then there was a guy called Dutch Elvis, another character, another Pattaya character. Colin Young is his real name, but he used to be an Elvis impersonator in Holland. Anyway, he was a friend and another character, invited me to play at a party he was putting on. I met this guy called Harold Clapp, another Dutchman, Harold Clapp. And he invited me to play down at his restaurant, which was called Tequila Sunrise. It's right on the beach, down in a place called May Pim, not far from the paradise island of Koh Samet. But this was also paradise. And I ended up playing there on a regular basis because it was just so beautiful. And he always gave us great accommodation to stay over. And it was another fun thing to do. I mean, I was just loving Thailand. By now, I felt that I was loving Thailand and Thailand was loving me.